God, Lord willing, right? I find that special someone, we start a family. Okay, let's say we have a baby boy. Should we uh give him the snip on should we cut off the top of his penis skin? Like, this is something that's very common. Sh
Yes.
I've read about it in your
It's a
book, so
very
I know what you're gonna say.
controversial. It's
Okay.
very, very controversial, but I am happy to talk about it. And some people get upset when they read chapter 4 in creating healthy children, but I had to put it there. I had to put it there. I came very close to circumcising my son. And I read a chapter in a book by Dr. Herbert Shelton. And there was a chapter in that book. There were other things in the book I didn't like that he said that I didn't agree with at all. And I love Dr. Herbert Shelton's work. I mean, he's the father of natural hygiene. He's
Yeah.
brilliant. But there's certain things about raising children that I don't agree with him. Like he had said that when a child is born, just, kind of put him off to the side by himself. You don't need to really, don't spoil him. Like that's ridiculous. I definitely want to spoil my children. I want to pick them up. I don't want to leave them alone somewhere and not touch them. Children need
Skin to skin,
skin
right?
to skin contact. That is very important for their mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
Hmm.
And you don't want to leave your kid in a crib or even on a bed, even if you do sleep with them. You want to be present in their lives, and those early hours, days, weeks, and even months and even afterwards, are so, so important for that child's feelings of well-being. And when a child is held and given that skin to skin contact, the stress hormone cortisol is lowered and the love hormone oxytocin is increased. And
The
that's what we
love
want.
drug, the love
We
drug.
want the oxytocin. And so right away, if we are doing this surgery on our baby boy, then we are, it's painful.
You're hurting him, right?
You're hurt. It's very painful. It's excruciating. And it's very harmful. It's very, very harmful. And I go into a lot of detail in chapter 4 of Creating Healthy Children. There's even a very religious Jewish man who talks about circumcision and why he started to go against it. He does not believe that it's religious at all to do that.
Well, I
And
mean,
it's not
the fact,
cleanliness either.
and you were raised Jewish, right? So,
Yes.
but even the fact that somebody made up this rule that it's supposed to be a religious thing is to me to me is ridiculous. I have heard the arguments for the cleanliness, but you're saying that the downsides way outweigh the whatever upsides that are being presented as why you should do it for cleanliness, or what's your opinion?
The downside is I actually had a very close friend of mine write that chapter. Her name is Lori Evans, and she almost had a divorce over that chapter. So, and just her whole belief system and the fact that as a Jewish woman, she decided not to circumcise her son. And I'm also, when I talk about this, my goal is not for parents to jump into stress and
Well, if you if
beat
you already did
themselves
it,
up over it. If
yeah,
you already did
yeah.
it, it's done, and you can practice attachment parenting. Hold your child, love your child, look into your child's eyes, be there for your child. I learned these things as a process. My mother, as I told you earlier, my mother died 7 years before I had my first child. So I did
Wow.
not have that present. I was really fortunate to have my father and my grandmother who were eating healthy, but they did not have this knowledge about body structures and that we should not be cutting off body structures. I don't think that my father was circumcised because he was not, I don't think he was born in a hospital.
Okay.
But they do it routinely in hospitals. And, you know, I think that you can, as part of your birth plan, if you decide not to have it, you can do that. And I do know another rabbi, the man who wrote in that chapter, I believe he was also a rabbi, and he was that religious man who's talking in that chapter. And he also did a film called Cut. And a friend of mine who is a rabbi, he was for circumcision. But after reading that chapter, he changed his mind. And now what he does when he does a bris for a Jewish family is he hosts what's called a bris shalom, where they celebrate the birth and they do it with the skin, not without the skin. It is a
Okay.
very painful procedure, and he realized that.
Well, if more people figure this out, all the moils are going to be, they're going to be out of business, in the,
They
but,
can do something else. They can do something else.
uh,
We want to help our children. I could not leave out any of the chapters in that book. Like I first sent it out to book publishers, and there were some big book publishers who were interested, and they said, well, we'll be happy to do your book, but could you take out this, and this chapter? And I was like, no, I can't take that chapter out. That was one of the chapters. There were other chapters that they wanted taken out as well.
that's right. That's right. Karen Ranzi is a maverick. She is truly independent. And on this subject, they did it to me too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the equipment, it seems to work fine, but after reading your chapter and after I've thought about it before then, and the whole thing is just weird that, I mean, that why would God make the body, incorrectly? And then it's almost like we're saying to God, it's very, it has a lot of hubris, the fact that we're going around modifying our own body. So I think the onus of having to justify doing it should be on the other side. And I've seen a lot of the logic in how the foreskin is supposed to do certain things, and it's really
It has functions, yes. And in that
Right.
chapter, she talks about the functions. It's protective. It's very protective.
Right. It's like an eyelid.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. That's what she
that's
says.
so anyway,
Act like an eyelid.
I'm glad we got to at least bring that up. So look into it for yourself. If you did it to your son, forgive yourself and everything. But if you're thinking about maybe the future generations, don't just listen to what someone tells you should do blindly. Just
Yes,
have discernment and really figure this stuff out before you
yes. Do
injure
research,
someone.
just don't listen to misinformation. And that's misinformation as well.
That's true.
In that chapter, at the end of that chapter, there are a bunch of really good resources. And go to those resources, read them, and see what you think before making a decision. That's really the best thing. And I've worked with many families over the years, and Jewish families as well, who have decided not to do it, and they have not been unhappy that they didn't. But for those who have done it, also, you've done it, it's okay. It's the same thing like when I go out and I speak about the importance of breastfeeding and skin to skin contact, all these wonderful things for a person who's new in the world that we want to give them so that they can really feel good about themselves. And people feel guilty that they haven't done those things, but you can still do them. You can still be there for your child at whatever age. I made my own mistakes that I that I was able to correct later on. Like I was studying skin to skin contact after I had my children. And when I found that out, I was they had the benefit because I did breastfeed, but I started picking them up all the time. Like whenever they wanted to be held, I was picking them up. I was carrying them around. I remember my son was like 4 years old and he was in school at the time. And he wanted to be picked up and I just picked him up and held him. And it made a big difference for him, I believe. So I think it's important to like listen to your child's needs and not like read all these books, and don't just take information that you're not sure of yourself. Look beyond.